in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. We're getting right into this. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. This is the second part. Okay, for part 1, go ahead and click the link in the description. This is Getting Ish Done every Wednesday. Man, sometimes it's 9:30, sometimes it's 10:30 Eastern time. How's the internet treating you there, Dr. Thunder?
I'm doing all right. Not too much of a struggle stream.
Not too much of a struggle stream. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this is part 2. For part 1, check out Dr. Thunder's channel. We're going to get right into this. Last time, I think there was a beginning, because basically what we're talking about today is rest, right? Rest is overrated. Rest is not quite appreciated and understood when it comes to the world of productivity. And I think that he made a statement, a comment, like a sentence that I caught the first time. And I said that this is going to be the framework that he has to hold up. He said basically long-term productivity. So his time horizon is long-term, and he's trying to define balance, right? That you need balance. And one of the things that he mentioned, if we recall, Dr. Thunder, was the cadence thing. That the idea that if you think that you're just going to squeeze the same amount out of every day and every day is just going to look the same over and over and over again, then you're missing the fact that, things don't work that way. There's cycles within cycles, right? A day is a cycle, but a year is also a cycle. Right? There's a regular day for the bear, and then there's the time when the bear is hibernating. There's a time when you catch salmon and fatten up, and there's a time when you make hay. Whatever it is, I don't know. Whatever it may be, you can't just treat everything as operating within one cycle. And I think that was something that was interesting with regards to kind of what he brought out. And then, in addition, we kind of teased out that whole you have different capacities, or shall we say different stores of energy for different activities, right? So one thing, one location, you can't just keep on pushing, you can't keep on pushing the same button over and over and over again. You need to let that button rest, go do something else. But anyways, let's see if the video will play. I'm sharing it here directly from WhatsApp. Never done this before. Let's see how this works. Go ahead and click the like button, share the stream, and word them up.
Can't hear it.
Okay.
And
Can't
it's
hear
kind of choppy too. Yeah, it's kind of choppy too.
So what happened is if I try to share it on YouTube, I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but if I try to share it on YouTube, it has like a scrambled look. You know that old?
Oh, really?
Has that happened to you on YouTube before? For sometimes it happens to me for some videos. Made by some I don't know why exactly that happens, right?
Did you get your internet service from a Nigerian?
I don't know. This is kind of weird. Kind of looks like the old.
I'm just wondering if I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, let me try something. Let me just go about the regular.
Maybe you just didn't have the button. Maybe you just didn't have that little checkbox or whatever clicked. Or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll go back to WhatsApp again because I know for
Yeah,
sure that
sure.
let's go ahead and do this. We share, we expand. All right, shout out to Kaizo and Empire. Click the like button as you come in. Again, we're talking about rest, and how overlooked it is in terms of your strategy for production and productivity.
Oh yeah, I can't hear it.
You say you can or cannot?
I cannot.
Interesting. All right, third time's the charm. Okay, I promise you this time, the thunder. The gods have spoken. Let's see. All right.
That many of us miss.
There it is. There it is.
Deeply entrenched in the productivity world. And that's something that I started calling a deep break. So similar to Cal Newport's deep work, instead of doing that work, you're getting away and escaping for at least 4 days to a remote location to detach from everything, work, from your life, your problems, and your troubles. This isn't the kind of break that...
Well, before he goes on, what's this? How does this idea of deep rest strike you? I mentioned before, again with the whole cadence thing, I kind of know. Like for example, this morning was one of those days where it was like I was kind of firing pretty high. Like efficiency was high, and then I kind of augmented it too by I didn't have any music on or anything like that. Like I didn't even have a freaking no Coach Greg Adams, no podcast, nothing, right? And because I know that kind of, even though you can, and I know you can, I can 100% work with all these things in the background, but I'm not stupid. I know that there is a little bit of extra juice you can shave off if you don't have that, right? So I was squeezing everything out of today. So let's say that's deep work mode. Do you think there's a counter to that where it's like, sometimes you need deep rest mode? You can't just go on your regular sleep or naps. You really, really need to go in there. And what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough because part of me wants to. Part of me has an issue with. I'm not sure how to say this. Okay, so part of me thinks it's a scam. Like this, like if you go away 4 days of rest, that's going to be the trick. It's like it sounds like a gimmick a little bit. So part of me wants to resist it, but then part of me sees that he probably has something there. And I know a lot of people, and maybe I am just not the kind of person that benefits as much from that. Maybe I just need to sit in a room by myself for a while, and then that's good. And it doesn't matter what the room is.
Yep.
Some people, they need to go to another location, and that does the same thing. So I mean, it could be that. So I'm not gonna totally poo-poo on it. I think there's some validity there, and I know that because my wife, for instance, she talks about getting away and stuff like that. And I guess that was before we got together. That was something that she regularly did. Yeah. So okay, I guess maybe there's something to it.
So well, first of all, I don't know if it's a window open or something like that. I don't know if it's the wind or if there's some kind of audio quality, whatever you can do to improve it. That will be great.
Okay.
While you
is it better now? Well, I'll mute it while you're playing.
Oh no! Well, it's just it really is when but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. And you can mute it while I'm playing. Just don't crash again. Don't.
No crashing.
Don't crash. Well, okay. Well, I'm gonna re-ask the question because you responded to a very particular thing about his going away or whatever, and however, you did not respond to two things. Number one is one that I said, which is the concept, right? Just the idea that just like there could be intense work, there also could be intense rest. And then secondly, there's any evidence in your experience that since you understand perhaps the intense kind of work thing, have you experienced different kinds of rest? Have you, or is your rest more or less the same every time? Have you like woken up or come out of a particular rest? You're like, you know what? That was a particularly restful rest. Uh, that happens every 6 months. I don't know what it is. How about that? In other words, the empirical evidence to back up the idea, and then just the idea itself, and forget his suggestions about which particular rock you go to.
Okay. Does it sound a little better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I do remember times where I felt like I got better rest. I got more sleep. I got a deeper sleep, you know. And I think I told you about this. I went through a period where I was not sleeping at all, and so now I really, really know the difference between when I'm getting good rest and when stuff starts to sort of go downhill, and I start struggling with like insomnia and stuff. And that's usually because of like a lot of kind of undealt with like stress and stuff. I realize that now, but I didn't realize that I was under that sort of stressful load at the time, and then it just kind of builds up and then over time. So yeah, I do think I believe that there is such a thing as a like a deep rest, like a very good rest as opposed to like a more shallow one, because I've definitely experienced that. The the point I was making earlier is I'm not sure how tied to the location that deep rest necessarily is. So like, is it possible for me to get deep rest at home? Is it possible just like, for instance, today was the last day of the semester. So tomorrow is quote unquote reading day when you're not supposed to meet with students. Students are not supposed to have any assignments or anything like that. And so theoretically, I should have a good night of rest. Theoretically, if that holds, but I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with you too that you can't completely be, beholden to locations and stuff like that. That cannot fully be the thing. One may say, I prefer to rest over here as opposed to over there. Might just be like, well, I like to sleep in this particular room, even if it's in your house. But rest should be rest, and the idea, ultimately, at the end of the day, trying to get to the fundamental principles, to the concepts, what you need, right? And one of which is to recognize, perhaps in this case, what we're saying is to recognize when you're getting good rest versus not, right? And it obviously not gonna matter whether it's not very important that you get in your car and go to a cabin somewhere in the woods. Not guaranteed you're gonna get better rest there, right? Especially if the reason that you're not getting rest is psychological or something, right? You're just gonna drive over to the cabin with your problems, and it's still the same thing. But I don't know. Maybe we, as we continue to play, maybe you can think of like any kind of tips to when, in other words, you've noticed that sometimes you get better rest, but have you noticed that, oh, I'm not getting good rest, and then let me do X? Or is it just a question of maybe let me just pay attention to it? Or is it always an afterthought? We're just like, oh, I guess rest has been bad past couple of weeks, or oh, I guess rest has been good last couple of weeks, that kind of thing. Which also happens too.
I think I basically know when it's good or bad. I think when it's going to be good or bad. I think I kind of know. I've become more sensitive to what the cues are because of the really bad experience with not sleeping at all, with no rest. So one thing that happens to me is when I'm starting to get into a period of like danger zone with that, basically what happens to me is I'm getting progressively less and less sleep day to day. So I'm going to bed later and later and later, but I still have to get up at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Later and later and later and later. And then it starts to catch up to me. And if I don't make an adjustment, that's when I'm in. That's the danger right there. And it's tricky because if you're having trouble resting, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you try to just say, okay, well, I'm going to just allow for more time to sleep, that's going to be the ticket. That's going to help me rest more. But it doesn't actually work that way. So say, for instance, if I'm okay, well, because I'm having issues with sleeping, I'm going to be in bed by 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can't just start getting in bed at 10:30. That'll probably create more stress because then you're just laying there and you're thinking about stuff you could be doing. You're not sleepy yet. You're not resting yet. So you have to do it incrementally, and there's a lot of discipline associated with that. So, and it's another thing to try to manage. And if you're already overloaded with a bunch of stuff that you have to do and deadlines and everything, then it becomes more and more difficult to manage that well, And like I said, and then you end up in danger zone. At least I do. So, I'm in a zone right now where I'm starting to get later and later and later going to sleep, and I started noticing that, and I'm like, okay, let me try to back that up. But you have to have for those that are for married or you have a significant other, you have to have a spouse that will work with you on that. Because if I start going to bed later and later, and she also has stuff to do, then she might start staying up later and later. So then when you just say, okay, I'm going to 10:30, then you show up at 10:30 and then, clothes are all over the bed getting folded and stuff like that. So it's tricky, man. It's it's kind of flimsy. It's like all the kind of superhero stuff that you try to do. It turns out that drinking, if you don't rest, you're pretty flimsy.
Indeed. Yeah, well put. I think it is mentioned that for people whom wake, you have insomnia, right? So you go to bed and maybe you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to bed. They say just get up. Like don't try to force yourself to go to sleep. That's just gonna end up being worse. And I think it's pretty good advice. And there, as a normal part of your sleep, I mean, you're waking up anyways, right? Sometimes you don't remember, but you're waking up almost about every hour and a half, and you kind of wake up, you look around the room, and you go back to sleep, right? And the difference between that wake up that you can go back to sleep from and the wake up where this is it. Like it's not gonna happen.
Definitely. And I've noticed this too, and people, this could be a signal of a health thing. So, the thing as men get older, the frequently going to the bathroom at night. So you're getting up and I've had it where I'll get up 5 times. And if you're already struggling with sleeping and you're having to get up every, hour and a half or something, or every hour, or whatever it is, that's, I mean, what are you going to do? And that's not really something you can, I was like, what you going to do? But it could be a sign of a health thing. Sometimes I drink a lot of water, and that's the penalty for drinking a lot of water, is me having to get up a lot of times at night. And it's not like you're in the bathroom and nothing is happening, and you just have you have the you just have like an urgency, but nothing's happening. No, it's like, you know, there's a lot of fluid. I'm trying. I'm sorry for being so graphic, but it's not. You know, but it's not like you know.
Yeah, I
like
drink a lot of
warning
water
flare.
too, and I use it
Yeah,
for also as a way of kind of waking up. I used to think it was about waking up early. Like if I wanted to, I was like, oh, if you want to wake up early, drink water. In other words, I heard that, and then I tested it, and I've kind of seen that yes, sleeping with being hydrated and sleeping, you get a better rest. So, however, it's not about waking up early. It's just that when you do wake up, you feel a lot better, and you get it's a rested feeling along with a I'm awake now feeling. So so that actually, and now obviously you're mentioning if you do, yeah, now you got to wake up and go urinate, but um,
right.
overall, it's better than waking up dehydrated. Let's just put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
I,
No, definitely. I'm definitely a fan of proper hydration. I've noticed a big difference in you know, when I'm fully hydrated, when I'm doing what I need to do, and when I don't. And even as a musician, I can get this thing. What is that palsy that people sometimes get in their face? What is that called?
Hmm,
I can't. There's a specific name for it,
interesting.
but I get that if I, you know, if I'm dehydrated. So basically, what happens is I have like very little control of my facial muscles, and so like embouchure and stuff like that goes to crap. So I can't play hardly, you
Hmm.
know. So I've had to be like, okay, let's be serious about this. I need to make sure I'm getting a certain amount of water. And with all the talking that I do, you know, all the, you know, podcasting and teaching and everything like that, you know, drinking a lot of water is a must because you also can damage your voice by being dehydrated and still trying to talk a lot. So anyhow,
Indeed, indeed. With all that running in your mouth that you do.
Includes jumping with not peak facing waterfalls. Now, this year, more than any other year in the past, I've realized just how important these deep breaks are. Because for one, at the beginning of the year, we just couldn't take any breaks because travel was had to stay at home, and because with that, with
Yeah, and I'm pausing a lot, but that's to be expected. Something comes to mind here in terms of I just want to mention it because I think we've kind of been pointing out to it in terms of the external environment, right? Which is something that he's talking about. So he's talking about space. He's also talking about time too. Like probably he has a cadence to this kind of once a year thing. And now he's talking about the pandemic and certain other things. Now there's certain people whom, um, based on personality, right, are not gonna really be affected by external things that much, right? Either the room that they're in, or even the fact that they can't see people or not, right? We all know about the pandemic and how it was great for introverts of all kinds, right? Uh,
yeah,
even
you're talking
extroverts.
about real men.
Wow. Even extroverts that were kind of introverted a little bit, like though some people suffered more than others, and I think that a lot of what he says uh, sounds like a foreign. Like I get what he's saying, but I just know that that's not the world I live in. I don't live in the world of this year and that year. I don't live in the world of in the winter time I do, or I couldn't see people this time. A lot of this external stuff going on, right? And I tend to live way, way more from the inside out, where it's like, what is he talking about? What the time and the this and the that? It's like at a deep break every once in a year, or I got, anyways. Um, just wanted to mention that.
time with trying to distract myself from everything that's been going on, I just poured myself into my work. And and I worked harder than ever before. And without that deep break, again, you're either going to have that self-awareness to slow down or you're going to face burnout. And so once the restrictions started to lighten up, I knew that Nat and I needed to take a break. And that's exactly what we did. And whenever we go on these breaks, we have some rules that we set for ourselves to make sure that we truly do detach. The first rule: away from your home, office, and city. I've lived between Philadelphia, New York City, and Los Angeles for the better part of the past 12 years. I love living in cities, but I also often feel deprived of nature. So getting out of the city away from the noisiness helps to calm my nervous system. The second rule is to limit your screen time. Apart from podcasts and my Kindle, I do not use any other screens while I'm away. When it comes to the content, I don't like to listen or read about current events. With my most recent trip, I stuck to reading nonfiction books and listening to history podcasts. And the third rule: keep your work at home. Your ego tricks you into the importance of your work, and it makes you feel like you're going to...
Yeah, no, if that depends on so my general reaction so far, or let me ask you first what you've heard that you want to pick on about his getaway trip with his Netta, I believe he called her, or him, or whatever.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I remember, you know how like these companies, they have these freaking retreats, you know, but it's not, it's like it's a retreat in that you're not in the same location, but you're going to have meetings, you're going to be, you know, vision casting and all that kind of.
It's worse
crap.
than work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, dude, I could be actually doing something instead. I'm sitting here looking at you, and then there's the people that are like, you know, they grab onto this whole, you know, you shouldn't be emailing, you shouldn't be doing work now. You're supposed to be, you know, this is supposed to be relaxing. This is supposed to be a retreat. You know, you're supposed to be in non-work mode. And that stuff is just is very irritating to me. Now, okay, so there's a difference between, you know, like I know I look at my phone a lot because I everything is on my phone. I mean, I'm like, people are contacting me, emailing me for a variety of reasons. You know, faculty members asking me questions about stuff that needs to be answered quickly. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Students trying to get in touch with me. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that's happening all the time, and I'm managing multiple things all the time. So, you know, also like my YouTube analytics are on there, and I'm kind of poking around. Okay, what naming conventions are working? What's not working? How, okay, this video's been out for 6 hours now. What is it looking like? All that kind of stuff. And that's stuff you have to kind of do in real time, right? So, all right, so there's that, and then there is doing that instead of spending time with your family. Okay, so the second thing, doing that instead of spending time with your family, that's not that you probably shouldn't do that. And I know I struggle with that, and it's not because I don't want to spend time with my family. It's like I'm honestly doing stuff that I'm doing this stuff because I want to be able to take care of my family. And it's like, I'm trying to get the bag. I'm trying to do what I need to do to, get things done. So it's challenging. And so this stuff that he's talking about as far as balance and stuff, I mean, there's some truth there. Some of the stuff he's saying sounds a little bit to me like first world problems,
Of course.
But yeah.
I think that you made a nice demarcation with regards to prioritization in real time, right? if in this particular moment I'm looking at YouTube analytics when the direct opportunity cost is that I get not, I'm ignoring my son or something like that. That's a
Right.
completely different thing than I have a rule that when I'm here on retreat, I don't do quote unquote work, which by the way, the idea of work is always a strange thing to me. Now I'm going to make the internal demarcation, which is basically that um, what you call work and don't call work is completely arbitrary. And I believe you have a bias, right? Where because you're very well aware of your internal state and what you want to do, you find it rather insulting that someone would even suggest to you what you should be doing, right? Or ought to be doing, or what's good, what you actually want, right? It's like,
Right. Right.
no,
Right.
right now I actually want to be editing this fucking thing. Like that's what I want to be doing, lady. Right? That kind of a thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um typically, in other words, that's not everybody. Again, for the people for whom the external world is more kind of important or relevant in this regard, with the COVIDs and the this and the that. People who talk like that, right? They're really they're operating slightly differently, right? So and that's perfectly fine. However, this idea of I'm going to take it a step further now in terms of work should be something that flows or can, I should say, can flow naturally, right? Let's say there's an aspect of your work that involves something tasking, let's say on your eyes, like computers or something like that, and you need to rest your eyes. I completely get it. Don't bring a screen, right? Go somewhere. Don't bring a screen. But if you enjoy your work, and hence it'll come naturally, right? And it's not about loving it or all that kind of, but it's just like it's something that kind of comes naturally. And not everything natural is, beautiful or sweet, right? It's just natural, right? So there should be other aspects of your work that might just occur to you naturally while you're in your dark room resting your eyes. That's perfectly fine. You know, if you sit there and think or record, put out your voice recorder and start dictating a note or something like that, uh, that's perfectly fine. In other words, here's the final crux here on this internal journey here of like, you started out with the real-time prioritization. I'm going and I'm saying, hey, you got to know what you want to do, right? And then how do you choose what is the best thing to do in the moment, given a plethora of things? That is basically a question of your physical state. Um, some people may like, in other words, shutting up and listening for a second, right? To whether or not this is what um, the totality of your being wants to do versus one aspect of your being wants to do. In other words, if you're trapped in chasing a particular shiny object, which typically has to be typically that's one aspect of you that's chasing that object, right? It's like one side of you, the side that likes to do X, or it's your stomach, or it's your smaller head, whatever, right? Whatever that aspect of you is found and is chasing, typically the idea in terms of how you spend your time is to stop, take a deep breath, and check if this is what if you're completely sacrificing your whole being to one particular aspect. The OCD over YouTube analytics, let's say that was it. And let's say you knew, because you're not a complete idiot and you've lived for a while, and you know that this is a particular uh, aspect of myself which I'm completely indulging in ways that I shouldn't be. Then you reevaluate and you change what you happen to be doing at that moment in that dark room. I don't know. Does that make sense? This idea of being able to check to see what your a more integral view of yourself it should be doing at the moment, as opposed to satisfying just the desires of a particular aspect of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we shall continue. Click that like button. Super chat works.
Continue to back who used to struggle getting to work. With these trips, your job is so having just got back from a couple days ago, it is So it allows me to get perspective. It allows me to step back from, you've got these blinders on when you're working sometimes, and you're so focused on all these things that
Why did it go?
to do. When you step back, you get perspective. You
can hear it, right, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you can hear me. Okay, got it. No, the screen was doing something funny. But yeah, I just wanted to comment little on what he's saying. Like, it does sound a lot like he's just kind of describing the aesthetic experience. In other words, like saying, "Oh, I went and I had this very beautiful leg of lamb with a great wine and the pasta at this place. Man, it's fresh pasta. It tastes like nothing else in the world. Blah 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 blah." That's when there's certain aspects of him describing his retreat that are just equivalent to that. Like, it's an aesthetic experience. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, you gained perspective. Yeah, because you were in a different, all that kind of stuff. But it's just like, okay, sure. I don't have to spend all that gas money and all that stuff in order to gain perspective, bro. Well, I shouldn't come for him too much, but anyways.
Big things that you need to be. Really, I found myself coming back to work this week with so much more clarity and focus, and I definitely wouldn't have had that. I feel so much more battery to go metaphor, and I'm more excited about my work than I have been in months. None of these were my daily, weekly, or monthly boundaries that I set for myself. But when you continue to stay in tune with yourself, that's self-awareness, you know when to hit, you'll be able to real. You'll enjoy your work a hell of a.
We mentioned family earlier, and one of the reasons why I do this, I do the getaway trip thing, but it's mainly for family reasons, as opposed to that is the reason for that. And it's because I know that I'm the kind of animal that just would never do something like that, or would just, for whom 10 years can just go by and you never have like a there's no retreat, no whatever, right? Commemorations, retreats, certain types of things like that, just it could or could not happen in my life. And if you're gonna have a family, you can't be that guy. Right? Like, you can't just be Mr. Weirdo living in your head and, oh yeah, 10 years went by. I guess, what are 10 years anyways? Anyways, so that is kind of why I do the whole go out to a cabin, don't take the phone kind of stuff, and you're out there, you're cooking and you're eating and you're chilling, you're talking, all that kind of stuff. It's something to kind of like it's like a reward, and also it helps to kind of check, because there's a kind of there might be a need for that kind of women like to call it communication, right? Whatever that means. Whatever that need that she wants for the closeness, communication, whatever, that can kind of serve as a psychological placeholder, something like to look forward to for her, like that kind of a thing. At least that's how my sociopathic, manipulative mind is viewing the thing. But who knows?
Oh God. Mastering and
Hey man, the video is freaking up really bad.
I think you're the video is breaking up bad, and I believe you were also Borging.
Okay, am I Borging now?
You're not Borging anymore. But I don't know. Were you gonna I thought I heard you say. Were you gonna say something or no?
Oh, I was just saying that the video got choppy for a little bit, but it could be just that something was weird. But
Yeah, got it. And shout out to
you just keep going. I got
yeah, shout out to checking for you here, dropping some comments. And as far as life hackers out there, enthusiasts and coaches and the Gary V's of the world. Shout out to Gary Vaynerchuk, right? So far this guy isn't so bad. It just so turns out that it is my attitude or my disposition to try to break things down to the fundamental principles, right? And that's why we started out saying, hey, is he going to live up to the claim? Is he building a good framework? What are basically his parameters? What is the goal that he has set for himself? And how is he going to explain that? How is the rest going to help him meet these goals and such? And so, meanwhile, pointing out some things that have to do with very specific personality and character types that are not generalizable, and that some people tend to generalize. Like, for example, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but yeah, I think it's a good comment they're checking for you. But what I'm basically trying to say is, this is one of he's not so bad, right? But one of the sins he's committing is generalizing. And I think just the same way some people in the realm of ethics, people generalize everybody feeling comfortable as a rule. The morality, Dr. Thunder, I would argue, in the mind of the many, is a social morality. Is if everybody feels okay and everybody feels like they're being treated fairly, then it's fine. And if you violate that by any means, by speaking the truth, let's say, then, or by whatever, that idea of if you break group feeling and whatever, then you're bad. And if you separate yourself, or if you do any kind of weirdo stuff in that is outside of this kind of group feeling, everybody feeling like they're fair and everybody feeling okay stuff, then you're bad. That's a generalization again, where a particular personality type takes their comfort to be law, which is a particular pet peeve of mine for these freaking people. But anyways, let me
to get you up to speed. In fact, my friend and the author of Essentialism, Greg McKeown, just released a class called Simple Productivity: How to Accomplish More with Less.
One of the things that makes unconventional is
this creativity. For a limited time, use the link in the description to sign up for a 2-month free trial member. For that annual subscription, $10. So last week, to matching up to $10,000 worth of your donations to Black and Indian charities.
Okay, so nothing which just to complete the whole I'm a hipster POS.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's going to talk about charities and stuff. You see, this is the kind of thing where this guy may perfectly, and as a matter of fact, there's no reason why I should think he's not a good person, right? Dr. Thunder? He's a good guy, right?
Well,
chances are, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a good person. See, because
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to pick on something that's not related at all to the topic. And that is this idea of what is a good person. Okay, now the Bible says that nobody's good. Mm-hmm. So that's the standard, right? So the standard of goodness would be like there was only one good person ever, right? So when people say a good person and they say stuff like good-natured, actually good-natured is a contradiction in terms. It's an oxymoron or something, right? Good-natured, like when you're talking about people. it's either the case that people have tendencies that are sinful, less than desirable, and need to be redeemed, and then therefore nobody's good. And the standard of goodness is a very high standard, not just basic, easy stuff that anybody would do, not even necessarily for the sake of another person, but just they would do it because, maybe they'd look bad or something if they didn't do it. Their saving face or something, and then actual, good qualities of a person and what that, how high that standard would be. So I'm kind of picking on this a little bit. We sort of know what we mean by if a person is a good person or not. However, I think it's pretty arbitrary what it is that we actually mean, because we may have certain personality, there's certain personality types that you just don't get along with. And so then your tendency would be to characterize them as if they're not the good person. And then other people that have a character, a personality type that you tend to like more, whatever their faults are, you just tend to overlook those faults. So you don't see it as being a big deal. So anyhow, I'm just picking on, I'm picking on that, but yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So if I were to go back to the fact that we're smirking at his charitable announcements or his announcements of charity,
Yeah.
and in this case, I'm the small, very small, because again, yes, you do say good, the word good in its biggest form, and then there's all these other smaller frames that people are talking about good in, right? The frame is against the charge that I'm charging him. I'm charging him with some kind of sleaziness by saying, and you too with your sneers and your jeers. There's something sleazy about Netta and I are giving a percentage of our whatever to such and such charity.
Yeah, I hate that crap. That's like,
now I'm trying to hold our feet to the fire here, okay? Since we're the ones here and he's not, or we know why. I know why, for example, I have that reaction, and obviously, so therefore, I have to interrogate it from time to time as to, okay, what exactly is it that is wrong with this type of a statement? Where in is it in the, okay? Let me make a question as opposed to me answering it like a freaking catechism over here. What is wrong with the question? With this kind of presentation, with what he's saying right now, Dr. Thunder? If I were to say it's equivalent to, he said, you say support black male media. He's saying, here's what I support. You support this. Well, how about that?
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Maybe there's no difference. That's a good point.
However, there is still some. There is a. So it may be a distinction without a difference, but this distinction, however, still perturbs you in a certain way, right?
Yeah. Okay. So what is it? Okay. Okay. So here's okay. This is why it bugs me, because it now appears that the entire video purpose was to make a sale, as opposed to being upfront about, look, I'm not doing this for free. I need you to support this. Okay, I'm providing content, but I do expect you to support me for that, as opposed to sort of hiding that all the way until the end. And now it's like, now it makes all of the other stuff that he said seem less, now it's like less believable or something, like it loses some authenticity points.
It would have been better presented. in a more full disclosure kind of right from the beginning.
Right.
It's so yes, so there is this marketing aspect that you don't like. In other words, when
Oh
you
goodness.
know there's a patina of something on top of something, you're like, okay, well, why did you you know so you would prefer a certain kind of naturalness. There's something
Yeah.
and there is something unnatural about the way he is sounding right now. It sounds like I don't know, like a brochure at some strange place where I'm a captive audience or some shit.
Yeah. It does. It's like it changes. It changes character. Like um he goes from sounding very sincere, earnest, believable. Yeah, okay. There's some arbitrary stuff that he's saying every once in a while, but you have to kind of, you have to sort of build
Mhm.
some sort of structure so people can look at what you're looking at. So that's okay. I'm all right with that.
So
You know.
checking for you says, Ike, reading between the lines. Like, no, just like when I started, this is self-reading, not reading between the lines. I'm saying, here is my reaction, and I interrogate my reaction or our reaction. We
Right.
found distinctions that perhaps don't have difference, but there are distinctions still. Typically, this is what I like to call within the aesthetic realm, right? Where he made a steak well done or something, and that just like offends you deeply, you know. But so it's in that realm, and sometimes there are things to be abstracted from. Let's say, for example, you wanted to abstract from the fact that you like things to be quote unquote natural, right? What does that mean, right? And how do you infuse this naturalness? Because aesthetically, I don't like it, you know. But I, I'm trying to. Well,
honestly,
yeah.
okay. So you keep using this word natural, and
Uh,
I think I know what you mean.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know what you mean, but it also, okay. So with this guy, actually, the issue is aspects of it are too natural.
Hmm.
Like he goes right into the sale, and as if there was there's no switch up. Like it
Hmm.
just goes right into it. It actually flows too easily. That actually adds to that sends my sort of spidey sensors, go crazy. I mean, I just got them finishing a concert series. Um, we played. It was a holiday show. Or it was a Christmas show. We went Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And each day, the person that leads the band, the artistic director, um, it's an organization. It's a nonprofit organization, and so there's ticket sales and stuff like that, but that doesn't really pay for everything. So they're in a big campaign right now, right? So the celebrating 50 years of the organization, and they've decided that they want to raise $1 million. Okay, and so he's talking about the stuff that the organization is doing. We need your help, X, Y, and Z. But it's not like he's developing this like skillful rouge so that he can, so that he can sort of trick people into, you know, listening to this as if it was, you know, somehow connected. No, it's a very deliberate portion of his presentation. He's not um he's not trying to make it seem comfortable
Hmm.
or natural or anything like that. He
Hmm.
just look, we need money, and you're the people that are sitting in here right now, so you're the people we're asking for money. It's
I
like
like,
that. I
yeah, I
mean,
like this. No, this is good because I think in your kind of hearkening on that word there, natural, kind of split it, and you've kind of found, it's like a Hegelian thing here. Now, okay, it's actually that this guy is trying to be too or one of the aesthetic things here that I'm noticing, because we've gotten past that rather rough, low resolution natural before, and that this guy is doing this. There's a whole. It seems a little. It sounds a little postury or something, or holy. It's not holier than thou what I'm talking about, but it's and I use all kinds of terms like hipster or whatever to kind of describe him. That attitude of
it's
everything being the same thing. I'm selling you
it's too
something,
easy.
or I'm talking to you, or it's all the same, man.
Yeah, it's too easy. It's too easy. I think maybe that's the problem that I have. It is too easy for him to just jump right into that bag. That it was too easy. That was the issue. And
So
yeah, so I don't know. And part of that is because I don't like asking people for money. I'll do certain things. I make certain statements, and they're frequent statements that I make, like when I'm doing a live stream. But I almost don't even treat that like I'm not making like a big deal about it. I'm just trying to get over with it. Okay, I have to do this thing. Here's my service announcement. Okay, now let's get into the stuff. It's like that, as opposed to like, I don't know, man. He's too good at it or something. It's too too easy for him.
Yeah. So textbook wise, by the way, this is very polished. It's very polished and all that kind of stuff, and that raises up your spidey senses to be like, this is quite trained. Perhaps he also has a natural. In other words, looking. It's either he has practiced the hell out of this thing that he does, or he probably has some natural talent for it. Like he has a gift towards being able to. There's some people like the people, right? That they have that ability to sound about the same regardless of what they're saying, and they push a certain kind of quote unquote authenticity throughout the whole thing, and then they kind of adopt the right kinds of colors, not using words, but tones of, in this case, diversity, inclusion, planet, it's all in there, dude. Like he never said any of these things, okay? But including the netta girlfriend who's kind of ethnically ambiguous. He's got the whole thing in there. It's a wrap. So it's like, and it's a big YouTube channel, huh? I suspect.
Right, it is. It's a million. He's over 1 million subs. So yeah.
It has that million sub patina where it's like it's gone through the ringer. This is. It's funny how they all, at least a particular segment of them, right, just come out looking like this all the time. And yes, he has put in all the right political buttons in there as well. This is textbook work in terms of and all that kind of stuff. Now, let me challenge you now further to are there aspects that you would want to add, learn from in order to tweak your marketing, right? Marketing, self-presentation, bringing people in type stuff. Any aspect of that, or
I'm ripping off as much as I can, man, from this guy. I'll take everything I can take. The only thing that I won't do is I won't do the thing where it seems like it's too I don't know, like that, just that it's just too easy, man. It's kind of like this. There's certain guys that they just always never had an issue talking to women. Like they just were never nervous about it, and they could just go up to like strange women and just like, and just start talking to them and stuff like that. And part of me feels kind of like, what's wrong with that guy? What is wrong with this dude that a really attractive girl that he actually would be interested in, that he actually digs, that he can just go over there and just start talking? So it's two things. It's either, as you said, they just are a natural, which is just like basically like a weirdo, just has some sort of weird knack for that, which is just not normal because, the regular response is to be super nervous and to not be particularly articulate when you actually talk to them. Like if you can make yourself go over there to talk to them, the natural thing, the normal thing we'll say is to be nervous and to be stumbly and all that kind of stuff. That's the normal thing. That's what almost everybody does that. You have a few weirdos that are able to just do that and it doesn't seem to affect them. They seem the same,
Now your son is one of those weirdos, right? In terms of yeah, because
yeah, that's interesting.
We'll find out. But
yeah, right. That's interesting because he does make friends easily, but he also is so young that he doesn't understand the stakes yet.
Yeah. So we will find out. We will find out.
Yeah, that's
however,
right.
there is because that thing that you're mentioning, right? Remember, I mentioned earlier that there is everybody feeling good that people turn into moral law, and as a matter of fact, this is the law of the land. When people talk about morality, they're talking about that thing, that group feel. That's more or less what it is. That's what they're doing. And then if it's not what's in the books, but that's what's in most people's heads, and that's what they feel morality is. But that particular function, right, which is called extroverted feeling, there's some personality types that is their thing. Like that's their thing. Those are the natural salespeople, right? The people that people love being around them, right? And they have all this external energy to give, right? They can just, it's like they just have this internal well.
Yeah,
pull it out.
But I still think that there's something. Okay, now so I'd argue that perhaps it is easier for that person to cold approach to cold approach, than the introvert. Yes. Okay. I'll get there. But what I'm saying is this is somebody that you're actually interested in. So, so then that's a different sort of thing. And so either you have this knack, which even for somebody that's an extrovert is still unusual, right?
100%. I'm talking about the LeBrons of that team, right? So it's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know one such person actually. And what I do know is there is technique, right? Because he's also quite articulate and intelligent, right? So he can kind of tell you his internal processes and stuff like that. So he is the LeBron of the extroverted feeling team. He's got all that in space. The kind of what they call gift of gab, that whole just endless and external energy, just like all day, every day, right? But there is a lot of internal technique going on because he's also a salesman, and we kind of and it's pretty good, which means that he's systematic and he knows what he's doing. So even in a sales call, we talk about we were talking about certain meditative techniques that he uses, right? So so for him, it's not just, so he is actually more of a weirdo. Not at least this particular one that I'm talking about. You are right that this is a weird person in many regards. They're an outlier in many regards. And the one thing I'm adding here is that it may not, it's not all as natural as you think, especially when they're high stakes, such as they like the person and stuff like that. Yeah, I've had those kind of conversations. Yeah, there's a thing going on internally. You just don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, but the next thing I was going to say, it's either they are just a weirdo and they just had this knack, and maybe they worked on it. Because you have a knack at something doesn't mean that you can't get any better at it, right? So they recognized they had a knack, and then they said, okay, now I want to spend the time on this. Or you're the kind of person that they just basically trained themselves. So in the way they train themselves is that through basically immersion therapy, they desensitize themselves, right? So what that means is those guys, they've been around so many women they've had interactions with so many women that nothing phases them, right? So either one of those guys is kind of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but for different reasons. Um, so
For different
anyhow,
reasons, indeed. So let's see if this guy if it's for the let's see what he continues to sell here. Him and Netta.
yeah.
Let's
Oh
see.
goodness.
You came through in an absolutely huge, raising over $17,193, which is absolutely insane. But wait, cut the music, because when you add your $17,193 plus our $10,000 match, that brings us to a total of $93, which is amazing. Because I've got one more add-on. I reached out to my sponsor for this week's video, Skillshare, and I asked them if they would also be the 10 roll $193 raised for two amazing charities. It really means so much having our back, and thank you to everybody who contributed in other ways besides money. It really.
Securities, and you can hear me, right, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah, I can hear you.
internet is kind of wildly out here today. Someone was talking about effective altruism recently, and that's just because Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX CEO, that kind of did some crazy stuff in crypto. That guy, if you've heard something about billions of dollars being spirited away somewhere, that guy, he was an advocate for effective altruism. And by the way, in terms of villains that I can 100% recognize and know exactly who they are, this is probably one of the ones that is very like, these guys are making it sound like such a mystery. Like, how can they know? What are you? I know this kid. I feel like I know. Like every other kid I went to engineering school with is exactly this guy, and it's a little sketchy and shady on the end. Not shadier or sketchier than the. I guess this is my point. They're making him. Some people make it out to like some kind of crazy, gigantic, evil monster. It's like, no, he's not way more sketchier than the average sketchy person out there getting a degree with you, right? And doing the same kinds of things and blah blah blah. So
It's
but
just
anyway,
more money involved.
it's just more money involved, and he was in an unregulated market, you know. And there's that whole thing of you haven't been tested with billions and billions of dollars in Bahamas in an unregulated market where you and the whole time you've been able to. And that's the whole thing about taking risk, because this is not the first. He didn't just start, right? So when you take risk and you survive for a long time and you haven't learned, you haven't done some, and you have maybe the gift of gab and you're smart enough, you maneuver through things, and you just thought, oh, I'll do this one again, and then this is not the place where he should have learned his lesson. But anyway, the guy was a big advocate for effective altruism, and effective altruism is an interesting thing altogether, but there's a side issue with regards to effective altruism, which is this notion of it's a story. You're going to work. You have a very expensive suit on. You're going to this interview, and you see a baby drowning, right, in a puddle, and you jump in to save the baby, and you sacrifice the suit, very expensive suit, and you wouldn't think twice doing that. However, well, what's the difference between that baby and some other baby dying somewhere far away and all that kind of stuff? And that is kind of where the argument begins. And then people may say, well, I will spend the suit, sacrifice the suit, because I know I can be quite effective in that's baby right there drowning in front of me. I can pick baby out of water, right? But this idea of let me give this argument I'm giving right now is kind of like a good excuse for out of sight, out of mind, right? It's like, hey, baby in front of me, I can save. This money given thing, who knows what may happen? What do you think about that first iteration there in terms of this back and forth about this argument?
I'm sorry. Say that last thing. Say that last thing again.
Would you giving the money to save somebody out there is hypothetical. So why should I give the money? Why should I give the money that even though I'm willing to ruin my suit, but it's because when it's a baby right next to me, I'm willing to ruin the suit. It's a $2,000 suit. I'll spend $2,000 to save a baby because I can be effective in pulling that baby out of the water. But if you're telling me about starving kids in Africa, I don't know. I don't want to even give $20 because I don't know that it could be effective. Is that a good excuse for the out of sight, out of mind impulse, or is that just cap and an excuse?
Well, if you have what is it? An internal. What am I trying to say? If you have an internal what is it? Introspection, right? So then you're aware of the issue with over evaluating things that you can touch with your hands versus the effectiveness of money that you give to somebody abroad. So if you're aware of that, then I'd say it's cap, at least at some level. But I'd also say that most people don't do that level of introspection or don't think about that. So it may not actually be cap. It might actually be a sort of you're trying to protect. You want to protect your resources, and you want to make sure that when you do something, it's actually having an effect, right? So, so it could actually be a good instinct to do that. And where I'm at now is I'm taking care of, home team, home base first. And so I don't feel bad at all not giving to stuff. Because I realize that the money that I save is going to go end up directly benefiting my family, my son in particular, right? So I just take that as being the thing that I need to be the most generous towards, and then that'll just be my mission, and then that's it. So if I end up hitting the lotto and having FU money or whatever, then maybe that'll change. But until that happens, I'm going to be very, very protective. Even for the most part, not even. I mean, I used to be the cat that, like, you see somebody and they ask for money, and I would always give them money. And I just stopped being that person because I wasn't. It didn't seem like it was doing anything. You'd still see the same people. You still see the same guy with the same gas can walking around. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
nah,
You know what? That is an interesting thing. I've heard something about that one. And let me add that real quick here, because there's another point about making enough money. In other words, the idea is, well, why should I give money now? I should just focus rather than you talk about you're just focusing on your family. It's the lottery part. I'm going to focus on winning the lottery, right? Let me build let me rather than me giving you freaking $1,000 a year. Let me go work for about 10 years. I'm going to build a $10 billion company. I'll come back. I'll give you $1 billion. How about that? That's the idea. That's some other argument within this kind of a situational ethics, talking about effective altruism. It's like, well, isn't it just best then if you just focused on building a big pot and getting the effects of compounding, right? As opposed to giving your stuff away early. Compound, build something, and then boom, be effective. But the idea of giving somebody something that is on the streets and they're gonna buy alcohol and cigarettes with it, that one from and this is just pure kind of like this kind of situational ethics, as we know, is like it's a parlor game. There's nothing really, but there's something to be questioned about. Okay, A lot of people drink wine, you know. A lot of people go have a hard day at work. They come back home and they have a glass of wine, right? Um, so if this guy's having a hard day on the street and he wants a beer, what's wrong with that? Have you ever, I mean, I'm giving him beer money. I'm not giving him save his life money. I'm not necessarily, this money is not so that me giving him this money, the expectation is not that, he's gonna then go fill out job applications tomorrow, blah blah blah, which he may or may not
Yeah,
be
yeah,
doing. But
yeah.
I'm not even
But
monitoring
has he?
that. I'm giving him wine money. What would be your
Yeah, but
argument against that?
yeah. So here's my issue. Um, it has to do with rewarding yourself when you haven't done anything yet. So, like, if you're giving this cat some beer money, and this cat is still living on the street, my tendency would be to give that cat no. He doesn't need to be able to
Mhm.
um I don't want to
You
say
want to push
celebrate.
him down the rock bottom as quick as possible as the means of pushing him back up, and all this beer
Yeah.
float. You want to take away the beer float.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, that probably sounds super harsh and everything, but I don't know, man. I've
What is
wrestled with
harsh?
this.
What would be harsh is if you were not clear about it. In other words, what I mean is this. It's not like the way I put it, which is okay. Look, chances are he has to hit rock bottom, right?
Right.
Chances are we have to remove this path of least resistance for him so that he is forced to turn around, right, and run away from hell, right? That kind of a thing. And
Hmm.
this is actually how. And if you have that position and you hold it and you believe it also, and it is also not in tune with the hard side of things. In other words, like this is in tune with your good feelings and your good conscience or the whatever, right? And then that's perfectly fine. I think that it can be harsh if you say it, but you don't, but you're wishy-washy about it. Maybe you do, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, that kind of thing. But I don't think there's anything harsh about, you actually believing that, right? That's the best way.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Maybe I should say it seems maybe it seems like unempathetic or unsympathetic, or like, like you don't care about their feelings, or like you don't care. um they need to have a good day too, just like anybody else. And I'm kind of like, no, but they don't need to have a good day. That's the problem. They're having too many good days, so many to the point where they're distracted, so distracted that they don't realize that they're homeless. It's like, dude, and when I say that, of course they realize that they don't have rent or a mortgage payment. That's not what I mean. I mean, you know, being homeless, like actually seeing that for the magnitude of what that actually is, you know. So because you can have a few good days and get some beer money, you know, I don't know. I want to push them to the bottom as fast as possible.
Yeah, my instinct is, so if somebody were to tell me, "Oh, why don't you give him the beer thing?" I'm like, my if I start from the aesthetic side, like just like what is my actual, how does my body react, right?
Hmm.
I'm kind of like, no, I don't really care. I don't really want him to have a good time. I don't really care about him having a good time. Um, uh, no, this is what I'm sounding right now. Actually, it sounds like pure evil. What I'm saying, and it is exactly what I mean. What I'm saying is like, okay, here's a dusty freaking piece of POS on the street. I don't freaking want him to have a good time, right? No, that's
Yeah.
just me being kind of like super honest as to a particular kind of like just like reaction in my body. And then I know also that this path of least resistance thing that I said is just a reality of life. That if you have this person, let's say in your life, that is causing you all kinds of trouble, and let's say it's a family member, and the whole always bothering the whole family, and it's because the whole family has cuddled and cultivated that particular thing. That's why it's still there as a problem. And the longer you keep on cuddling and cultivating it, the harder that cut is going to be. So I'm not going to be a part of the cuddling and cultivating and keeping it going, right? I was
Yeah.
talking about someone, so whether the person is on the street being a menace to society, or someone being a menace to their family. Yes, it has gone this far, and now the cut is going to be hard, but taking it any further doesn't make the cut any easier, bro. Like, it's
No,
just
it actually makes
harder.
yeah, it's always, it's that principle that it's always worse later. It's always better to do it now,
Always.
and always worse later. It
It's
always
always-
is worse later. It's always worse later. This is one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons that an aspect of the timing objection that people have, like you're trying to have a conversation, maybe it's a hard conversation, and it's, they make you deliver it, the way they want to hear it and in their time and all that kind of crap. There's an aspect of that. Now, there's an aspect of that that makes sense from the giver's perspective. Like, if you're trying to tell somebody something and you want to get the best outcome, there's wisdom in waiting for the right time to do it. But what I'm talking about is from the person's perspective that is dead wrong and needs to be corrected. Right? That timing crap, dude, it's always going to be worse. It's always better for you to learn this now, instantaneously. Get this learned right now. Not wait another week until you're feeling better about yourself. I don't give a crap about how you feel about yourself. You need to learn this right now.
Yeah, and this is its own kind of coldness. Remember, I mentioned that morality is measured by the eyes of 99% of people as, this kind of feeling thing, especially kind of harmony feeling. How could you do that to this other human being regarding their feelings and their need for wine, whatever, right? How could you do this to grandma on this day, on the day of her daughter's whatever? All that kind of stuff, right? It's more important than truth. It's more important than whatever. All those things everything gets sacrificed to this kind of, I feel good, you feel good, everybody feels fair, whatever, right? So I agree with you that is a bunch of hogwash. But shout out to Checking For You. Why'd you hide my man Ryan? Because he said Ryan said he's more of a meth guy himself, and that he does meth a little bit recreationally. And I say it seriously that if you want to offhand dismiss some drug, based on general notions of it, right, in the media, by the government or whoever, you may want to think twice about it, because a lot of that stuff is just arbitrary. I mean, marijuana is a Schedule I drug. And this has nothing to do with whether something should be legal or not. This is just about the kinds of weird biases we have. In this case, we're talking about facts, we're talking about science, we're talking about something gets ingested into the body, what can be used or not used, what lends itself to more to be abused, blah, 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 the effects, blah, blah, blah. Everything from food all the way to the most complex chemicals you can put in your body, right? Making arbitrary judgments to them is just not, it's not useful. Like, just kind of like, oh, this thing here, it's called meth. Very bad. Wow. Wonder why. It needs to be kind of clearly stipulated and compared against what exactly, right? And there's a particular doctor, and he's a brother, he's a African American guy that wrote a book way on the libertarian end about drugs, and a lot of people don't like what he has to say, but it's the truth. And part of it has to do with because there's an aspect of criminality that we like to associate also with the drugs. And he was pointing out, like, no, behind a lot of these freaking gated communities, okay, are very high-paying lawyers that do a bunch of cocaine on the weekend. Okay, like stop making it seem like oh no, it's those thugs over there that are. In other words, there's all kinds of complex marketing around the idea of drugs that for anybody who likes clear thinking, and this has nothing to do with motivated reasoning regarding whether it's regarding what ethical or moral or political questions you want to go. It's like, it has nothing to do with that. It's just about having your mind free of all kinds of viruses that have nothing to do with reality, about the type of person that uses drugs, the type of drug that they use, which one is worse than the other. It's huge in terms of, if people can, if the United States can have marijuana as a Schedule 1 drug and we still think that humanity is kind of sane, this shows you the nature of the machine. Once there's been a propaganda, put out there by Randolph Hearst, for example, about hemp in general, it has lasted close to 50 years now. And this is how things work. And people's minds just kind of flow into particular grooves. But that's I'll get off my diatribe, my soapbox diatribe about clear thinking. And the drug area was one area where I think that people just kind of, they get stuck in a particular box. But to be honest, I've heard to kind of rebuff myself. Most people don't spend any time thinking about anything to this level of depth anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? So I'm arguing with no one. Nobody thinks clearly about anything, so it doesn't freaking matter what.
Yeah.
Anyways, we did come to the end of the video in 2 parts.
We made it.
And overall, I would like to say that the only thing I kind of got out of it was the cadence aspect, of things. Understanding that, look, you gotta have different cycles. A day is a cycle. A year is also a cycle, right? There's also months in there whereby the other cycles are going on. So understanding your rhythms in terms of your energy consumption and the recharging thereof is important. But what are your closing thoughts? And did you you already did Do Thunder's Thoughts?
Yeah, I did it on Tuesday. It was a good show. Dr. Ronald Neal was on. The name of the show was What Does Voting Your Interests Look Like for Black Men? And that's the right dude to have that conversation with. It was a really good conversation. That's my man. Very thoughtful, dude. Has a really wide range. Something that people don't probably know about him is that he was a minister for years, Baptist minister, and so he has a tremendous range. But all the kinds of stuff that he can talk on, and just his knowledge base, and just being a good brother, man. That's my man. So anyhow, that was a good show. And then of course I did one this morning that's performing really well for my channel. Let's see, what was the name of that? It was a Car Thunder. It was called hold on a second. Let's see, 1 second here. Oh yeah. It's called Only Black Men Are what is it? Only Black Men Are Expected to Take a Bad Deal. Something take a bad deal for the sake of the community.
Speaking of marketing, Dr. Thunder, unless you're trying to trigger the algorithm, the title doesn't matter, because you had me already on. Oh, you did a show, and I'm like, well, what was the show about? And then now you're looking for the title, and then now you lost me. So goes the theory, right, of communication there.
Oh,
I still don't know what this video is like, because I did a video, and with Deion Sanders, I'm assuming, or something like that. And
yeah. It's called This is why Oh no, black. Only what is it? Black men are the only ones that are expected to take a bad deal for the sake of the community. Yeah, that's the name. That's the name of the video. And again, I'm talking about I'm talking about the Deion Sanders thing. I'm talking about a lot of the criticism that people have. It's the same criticism that they have of folks that are not willing to conform. They're like, well, you're telling me to go over here, but I want to see what's over there. And why do you keep telling me to go over here when I'm telling you I want to just see what's over there? Well, no, you're not allowed to go over there. Don't go over there. Only sellouts go over there. Only, lames go over there. Only, it's that kind of thing. And it's very interesting because nobody else has this weird pressure to just basically accept any old garbage kind of treatment and just be happy with it. So Deion really was supposed to stay at Jackson State where he was making $300K, which sounds like good money, but you have to recall that he was actually paying out of his own salary a bunch of his coaches because they didn't have no budget. He actually repaired he upgraded the air conditioning system. They didn't have air conditioning in freaking Jackson. They didn't have air conditioning in the facility. So he paid his own money to fix that. There was taking because of the issues with the water was poisoned or something. They was taking team was taking baths or something in a pool. And there was breaking into his son's car, stealing his stuff and stuff. And this cat's supposed to stay there instead of taking a $30 million deal to work at a state-of-the-art facility, where whatever recruiting he was able to do at Jackson State, he's going to be able to do way better. It's going to be easy for him to get the kind of athletes that he wants.
It's interesting because maybe let me give myself the last word here.
Sure.
Throw a bomb at the ADOS community, maybe. No, so from the outside looking in terms of this, to use shorthand, seems like crabs in a barrel, or not particularly crabs in a barrel. It's more, you should stay and sacrifice for the community. Nothing particularly malicious in terms of the way it is typically presented and all that kind of stuff. It would seem to me, in addition to the fact that there's a lot of talk about community in the ADOS community, which, by the way, is a symptom of something, right? You don't talk about community typically if you're doing community, right? It's not something you talk about. We typically not just talking about it, talk about community. It's an interesting thing, or to talk about culture, for the culture. It's and again, it's just giving you it's an outside looking in perspective, and it's not just uniquely my perspective, because you could be like, oh, well, here goes Ike with his weird views and visions, but it's not uniquely my perspective. There is a notion of talking about culture and talking about community, something that you're trying to grab a hold of or create or make manifest in front of your eyes or try to believe in, but it really isn't. It's quite different from the actual practice of it. And then as a result of this, you have a part of talking about community is this kind of thing, talking about where this guy goes, right? It becomes counterproductive. Forget the fact that we've already kind of recognized that it's a symptom of something, but we see that it becomes counterproductive in the case of Deion Sanders here, and that ultimately the only way that it can disappear and be like something else is where the people who say these kinds of things are completely ignored. In other words, there is no talk about the people who said that he should stay, and people don't make anything about it, and it's just like, oh, nah, this may never happen. But it's just kind of like that would have to be the thing where it just kind of dies, where people who
Well,
say
yeah, but
things
the
that
thing,
you should sacrifice. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're right. The problem, though, is that it seems that most people are taking issue with it. Most people are behaving as in a way that he's already got money. He should just keep that $300,000 gig and reject the 5 million a year gig. He's already got money. So what does he need with more money? This 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 is what the thing that's funny about this is that if a situation arose for any of these critics where they could make that kind of money, they would have already taken the money. They would have already taken the money. So it's just something to complain and whine about. And you're right. I think it's in many respects, some of this is about it's kind of like the thing that Morgan Freeman said about like racism. He says, well, how do you fix racism? Stop talking about it.
Yeah, it's an individual and then in your bubble view, I would say, and it is true in that thing. And I do kind of live that in many regards. So racism is just one particular parameter of identity, but in many ways it's like the full richness, fullness, and depth of life is completely obscured by focusing on any one of these kind of narrow, right?
That's right.
Parts of you is like and so on. But all quite interesting. I was listening to this guy called Raoul Pal. He's a kind of hedge fund guy and such, was adjacent to some big hedge fund players whom became famous, and he too didn't get to billionaire status, but he's quite comfortable, and he lives out there in the Cayman Islands and still in the financial sector and all that kind of stuff. And he's an Indian, and there is something about the story that he was telling, growing up in India, migrating to England, similar to this other billionaire now, Chamath Palihapitiya. We reviewed one of his videos earlier, blah, blah, blah. That it's almost like if I hear that version, like it's almost like if I were to play that guy's story right here in the manosphere, I would hear all kinds of reasons about why that will be impossible for a black person to do. But in reality, it was not really, right? Like in reality, not really. This guy never meant the whole idea of whether it was Indian or not or whom, blah blah blah, just never comes up. I mean, I'm just saying that because of this whole idea of just remove this thing out of the way and let's just see what's possible. But meanwhile, if I just told the story, people will bring the racial lens and say all kinds of reasons why. Well, that could never happen if I were. Anyway.
Yeah. But I guess it's not fair because Indians are actually Caucasians, right?
Yeah, I know.
See, the white man. See, he's still the white man. That's why he got that money, because he's still the white man.
Yeah, but the funny thing though is you do have to be. It is interesting. This is something I'm going to address it because again, I've been saying that I'm going to be doing a show, and I'll start it next year. It's called The Money Game. I'm going to be just making short videos about, well, not very short, about some concepts on this money thing, and the fact that okay, here's one of the things within the black sector, right? Forget manosphere, broader than that, like the level of content of financially, I'm talking about representation within high level financial content is very low. Some people tell me, oh, well, I know this channel and this channel, and then I listen to those channels, and it's just these. I'm not talking about kindergarten level stuff. I'm not talking about people who just tell you how to, whom are doing Dave Ramsey, like the black equivalents of Dave Ramsey, and telling you to buy black or showing you where black. It's like, I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about the cutting edge, highest level where this guy is respected by all the hedge fund managers because of his in-depth, analysis and incisive knowledge and the trades, that kind of shit, right? And it's just not there. And the ones that are there, again, they're kind of clothed in this kind of community identity thing, and it's just like, what's the like? So I find it, I just find it interesting that a lot of people are scared of money in a certain kind of way, where it's like, well, why? That's one place where especially nowadays, there's not a lot of you could scoop up quite a bit of it without anyone really noticing, bro, that you're black or whatever. Anyways, that's another story for another day. But we shall see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, even though we didn't get any super chat, it's okay. It's okay. You know, you guys are still cool, but it's not too late right now in this last minute while we're signing off to drop that £2, $2.99, whatever it may be, super chat, super sticker, super thanks for the replay gang, as Dr. Thunder likes to say, and all that good stuff. But next week, Getting It Done will be on Dr. Thunder's channel. Case Closed, I believe, will be on your channel this Sunday as well, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And gonna be a fire panel with a fire topic as usual. But for now, peace. Good evening.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil's lurking, with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.